Hey, good morning. It's a gorgeous day. Oh my goodness. You know, yesterday I actually took a break and I mowed our entire property. That's how I take a break, right? I didn't work on the deck, and it's a good thing because there's some things that are kind of in flux right now, but we'll get to that later. So I wanted to lay out kind of a mock-up of the railing system here because let me tell you, there is a difference between measurement and reality. Absolutely. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there's definitely a difference. I can measure all day long, and sometimes things aren't exactly what they are on a tape measure. So, because I laid this out, I want to make sure that these are actually 6 feet on center, like they say on paper. So, I'm going to take my tape measure, and this is the same as measuring joists. The technique I'm going to use here, I'm going to measure out to out, because it's just easier than trying to hold that right in the center. So there we go. And yes, it is, you know, when you put the little sleeves on, the little inserts, 6 feet on center is going to be just fine. So now that I know that reality matches the measurements on the tape, I can move on to the next step. So we're over the garage because I am going to do all of these posts at once, but I need to make sure that they're going to be the exact right length because they're all going to be exactly the same length for these posts. So once again, reality versus measurements. I know that these are supposed to be 39 inches. This is 1 inch and my joist is 7 1/4. But I'm going to mock it up first and make sure that the measurements match the actual material. So the first thing I did is I slid the sleeve down over the 4x4 and I left it just about 1/8 of an inch shy of the top of the 4x4 because you do not want the 4x4 sticking out of the top of the sleeve. Next, at the bottom of the sleeve, I put a scrap piece of Trex and then my 2x8 material so I know exactly how long this 4x4 needs to be, and I'll mark it at the bottom. Would like to mention, of course, I am using the Kubota to hold all this material up while I do this, and I'm being safe. I am not working underneath the forks or in any way. If that came down for some reason, I'm not in danger. It's just very convenient to be able to pull these 4x4s off and cut them. Anyway, now I want to double check my measurement. So, take all this off. I'm going to measure. I've marked 39 inches for the sleeve, another inch for the Trex, then another 7 1/4 inches for the 2x8 material, and I'm still 1/8 of an inch shy of the line that I made. Now it's only 1/8 of an inch. Am I going to go and do this for every single post? No, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to make all these cuts and then have to come back and make all these cuts again or waste the material. So I just like double checking. Now it's time to cut all of these to the exact same length. So I've got my DeWalt miter saw stand here, and it has this wonderful function where I can set this stop at the end, tighten it down, give it a little push to make sure it's not going anywhere. And then I know every time I put a piece of material on here and send it down to there, it's going to be the exact same length every time. We've got all of our guardrail post material cut to length. Now we need to hold it in place. So a good idea is just take a scrap piece of 2x4, set your screws in at about exactly 16 inches apart because your joists are 16 inches on center. You're going to put this underneath and affix it in place. And because I'm me, I went ahead and brought my little piece of scrap Trex over, clamp the post in place, and set the post sleeve over it, and it's perfect. Absolutely perfect. So, good to go. Of course, the next step is you want to make sure your post is plumb. So you're going to take your little tool here, hook it in place, make sure it's on there tight. It's good this way. This needs to come over. Perfect. Now that I know this is plumb, or at least as close as I can get, I'm going to go ahead and run a 3-inch deck screw in here and just hold it in place. Now I'm going to simply repeat those steps for every single post so that they're all temped in place with these 3-inch deck screws. Now that I've got all of my posts cut to length and temped in place where they're pretty close to being plumb, maybe not perfect, but they're close. Next, I need to cut blocking and install it on either side of each. We're looking for strength this way and this way. So I'll show you where those go next, using a combination of 5-inch and 8-inch Simpson strong tie timber screws. So we're going to start right here on this corner post, and every post is going to have a unique situation. We're trying to create stability this way and this way, so we'll need to put blocking on both sides. Now this situation here, you've got this little gap, which is why it's very important to not throw your scraps away until you're done with your project. So now that I've got my blocking in place, and once again, it's just temped. I put a couple of screws in just to make sure. You want to just be sure that this does not stick up above your joists, because you don't want you don't want it to affect your deck boards. It's really just to hold the post in place, okay? Treat each one of these posts as an individual job. Take your time, make sure they're plumb, make sure everything is good, because this is going to affect your entire guardrail system with each post. So take your time, be meticulous. So I'm going to use 2 8-inch screws this direction, and I'm going to use 2 5-inch screws this direction. Now it's important to make sure that these screws do not hit each other when you drive them in. So I'm going to mark these, and my 8-inch screws will be 2 inches from the top and 2 inches from the bottom, and my 5-inch screws I'll make 1.5 inches from the top and the bottom to guarantee they won't hit each other. It's also very important, because these are such long screws, you want to pre-drill, and I would use some type of a lubricant. I'm just going to use like a Vaseline to allow those screws to go in much more easily. So before we screw this into place and get it permanent, we're going to make sure that it is absolutely plumb. Now this way is pretty darn good, but this way needs some adjustment. So I'm going to loosen the screw that I've got holding it in place just a little, and I'm going to use composite shims. Now I'm choosing composite shims because they don't change shape, and they don't rot, and they don't compress. So this will be exactly the way it is for the rest of the life of the deck. Perfect, right there. Okay, now once I'm done with this, all I have to do is use a chisel and break that off. All right, time to run our first 8-inch screw. You want those to be flush, because when we put fascia on, you don't want those to affect the fascia. All right, we know our corner post is solid, it is plumb, it is not going anywhere, and it is tied in very well to the structure surrounding it. Now, if these posts had gone all the way into the ground, which is an option, then they wouldn't need all of this blocking. But because these are only supported by the structure of the deck, we need to make sure that they use every bit of it that they can for both directions. Now I want to show you a line post. So the only real difference with a line post is you're maybe going to have less material to attach to. So really, you're just blocking in where that space allows. Now this line post happens to come right next to a joist, so that's nice. I'll be able to just use the joist as support. But I also had to add blocking behind it, and then I cut another piece of that scrap and I put it right here. So what dictates whether you use an 8 or a 5-inch screw, I've got 8 inches of material here to go through. So I'll use an 8-inch that way, I'll use 5-inch this way, and I've also marked 2 inches down for the 8-inch screws, 1.5 inches down for the 5-inch screws, so that they don't run into each other. So now you've seen a corner post and you've seen a line post. So pretty much every one of them is the same thing, but they're also all unique. So you might need to shim it. You're gonna have to set your blocking up according to where your post is and where it comes between the joists. But as long as they're supported forward and back, you're good. So that's gonna be it for this video. And on Wednesday, I think we're gonna be building some stairs. And that, once we get the stairs done, is going to complete everything that's gonna be done with wood on this project. And I will be moving on to putting Trex, putting actual decking material on this deck. That's gonna be exciting. So I'm gonna finish all these rail posts up and I will see you on Wednesday when I am doing more stairs. Catch you then.